All right. So, welcome back for another deep dive.
Oh, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we're really we're going to get into AI today.
Yeah.
It is, as always, like
Mm.
drinking from a fire hose. There is so much happening. We got research papers stacked up. The Discord channels are on fire. The Reddit threads. Whew.
Yeah.
And even Elon Musk is weighing in on some of this stuff. So, it's going to be a lively one.
Yeah, it really is an exciting time to be following all this. Like you said, so much happening, huge investments, brand new models coming out.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, let's try to break it down then.
Okay.
One of the biggest things that just jumped out from the research, one of the sources is OpenAI's Stargate project.
Right?
$500 billion
Oh, yeah.
invested over the next 4 years in AI infrastructure.
Huge.
That's more than the Apollo program,
It's wild. It really is.
just to give you a sense of scale.
Yeah.
But a lot of the sources that we're looking at are skeptical, especially on Reddit. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of comparisons to other projects that have maybe been overhyped and underdelivered
Yeah.
in the past. And even Elon Musk himself, who's not really known for being cautious. He's expressed some doubts about whether SoftBank,
Mm-hmm.
who's part of this, can actually deliver on this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's healthy to have some skepticism when you see numbers that big. $500 billion is an insane amount of money. And the technical challenges to get to, like AGI, are still immense.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it does feel almost too big to be true.
Right.
But then you see the players involved. You got Oracle,
Yeah.
you got MGX. This isn't just some
Right.
tiny little startup.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's going to be interesting to see where they put all that money and what comes out of it.
Yeah. So we got the investment side, but I want to talk about the models, man. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, the models. So, Gemini 2.0 has been getting a lot of the headlines. But there's another model out there that's causing a stir.
Okay.
It's called R1.
R1.
Yeah, it's from a company called DeepSeek.
Okay.
And it's demonstrating some pretty amazing capabilities,
It's like a what?
especially in math and reasoning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In some of the research papers we have, they're showing it getting like 92% accuracy on some pretty tough benchmarks, beating out GPT-4, Gemini, all the big names.
Really?
Yeah. And there's this one anecdote that's really interesting. They gave it a complex graph theory problem
Mm-hmm.
that GPT-4 actually failed to solve. Not once, but twice.
Oh, wow.
And R1 nailed it.
So what's going on there?
Well, from what I've been reading, it seems like DeepSeek has developed a new approach to reinforcement learning that allows R1 to sort of think in a more logical, step-by-step way, almost like it's breaking down the problem into smaller chunks.
Interesting. So it's not just like brute force pattern recognition.
Right. It seems like there's a higher level of reasoning going on.
So that's how it's getting those results.
Potentially, yeah. It's early days, but it's really exciting.
That is cool. But I'm assuming there's got to be a trade-off somewhere.
There is. So while R1 is super powerful, the sources are saying that the distilled versions,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are the most efficient, are also incredibly brittle.
Brittle. What does that mean?
Basically, they require very specific prompts to function properly. They're not as adaptable or flexible as some of the larger models.
Okay. So it's like raw power versus ease of use.
Yeah.
Classic trade-off.
Yep.
And speaking of AI that's a little bit difficult to understand, DeepSeek also has this model, R10.
R10.
Yeah. Even more powerful
Wow.
than R1.
Okay.
Acing even harder math problems. But get this. Its answers are coming out as gibberish.
Gibberish.
Complete gibberish.
Wow. That is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's operating on a level that we can't even comprehend yet, but it's still getting the right answers.
Right.
It's wild.
It's like it's speaking a language that we haven't learned to decipher.
Exactly.
That is, I got to say, it's a little unsettling.
It is a little unsettling.
Yeah.
Because if we don't understand how it's thinking,
Right.
how can we be sure it's safe?
Exactly.
How can we be sure it's aligned with our goals?
And then you consider R10 is also like 50 times cheaper to run
Right.
than some of OpenAI's models.
Yeah, it's really highlighting that this whole black box problem is becoming more and more of a practical concern,
Yeah.
not just a theoretical thing.
Yeah.
Because as these models get more powerful, more accessible, we really need to figure out this whole alignment question.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if there's maybe a different way of going about all this.
Well, there is the open source AI community
Oh, right.
that's taking a different approach.
Yeah.
And the sources we have from there, they're really energetic about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a whole nother world over there.
Yeah, it really is. So you've got these big companies, right, pouring billions of dollars into these closed systems. And the open source community is saying, no, 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 we need transparency, we need collaboration. We think that open models are actually less susceptible to bias and ultimately more beneficial for society.
So it's not just about building models. It's about building a movement.
It really is. And it's gaining traction. I mean, even DeepSeek, the company behind R1, they open sourced their code,
Really?
which is huge.
That is kind of a big deal because, I mean, they poured so much time and money into that.
It's very different from what we're seeing from a lot of the big players.
Yeah.
But it really speaks to their kind of philosophy of wanting to democratize access to AI.
Right, right. I also saw that there's this whole surge in something called minimal GRPO implementations.
Minimal GRPO.
Right. What is that all about?
So GRPO, or Generalized Reinforcement Learning from Preference Optimization, it takes that whole reinforcement learning concept that we were talking about, and it pushes it even further.
I don't remember exactly what GRPO was. Refresh my memory.
Okay, so basically it's a way to make reinforcement learning more efficient, less reliant on these massive amounts of data. So imagine you're training a dog. With traditional reinforcement learning, you might need thousands of repetitions to get them to learn a trick.
Right.
With GRPO, you can achieve the same thing with far fewer trials because the feedback's more targeted, it's more nuanced.
Okay.
So in the AI context, it allows you to train these models more efficiently. And minimal just refers to the fact that these implementations are designed to be lightweight, accessible. So even individuals, small teams, they can use them.
So that's pretty cool. It's like the tools are becoming more powerful and more readily available.
Right, exactly.
At the same time.
At the same time. And then on top of that, we're seeing the rise of these community-driven data curation efforts.
Oh, yeah?
So instead of relying on these proprietary data sets, the open source community is like, hey, let's pool our resources. Let's create these massive, publicly available data sets that everyone can benefit from.
It's like the whole spirit of open source software,
Yeah,
but now applied to AI.
exactly.
Man, that's got to be shaking things up a little bit.
It really is. So that traditional model, right, where everything happens behind closed doors in these big companies,
Yeah.
it's being challenged.
So is this true democratization of AI? Or is it just like a shift in the power dynamics?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's something that the AI community itself is debating right now. But one thing is for sure, the open source movement, it's really injecting a lot of dynamism, a lot of competition into the field.
Which is good for innovation.
Right, absolutely. When you have more people experimenting,
Right.
sharing ideas, collaborating,
Yeah.
you're going to see more breakthroughs, more creative applications.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. And we're seeing some amazing new tools popping up.
Give me an example. What's like a cool application you're seeing out there?
Well, one that I thought was really interesting, there's this tool called Windsurf. It's designed to analyze code
Okay.
and then automatically generate slide decks.
So you're telling me I could skip those late nights
Yeah.
putting together presentations for work?
Yeah.
Sign me up.
It's pretty cool. So the idea is that AI can handle all that tedious stuff,
Yeah.
putting the slides together.
Right.
And then you can focus on the actual content, the delivery.
That's a huge time saver. Developers, project managers,
Yeah.
anybody who's dealing with complex info.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's just one example. We're seeing tools being developed for everything.
What else?
Scientific research, creative writing, music composition.
Wow. It's like AI is becoming this ultimate multi-tool.
It really is. Enhancing our creativity, streamlining workflows, pushing the boundaries in all these different fields.
But it's not all, sunshine and roses.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the downsides? I mean, jobs. That could be displaced by all this. What about the ethical implications of using AI to create art, music? I mean,
Yeah, those are all valid concerns. And I think it's important to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
so how do we make sure it's used for good? How do we navigate all these challenges and make sure it actually benefits all of humanity?
That's the million-dollar question. And I don't think there's an easy answer, but I think it's going to require all of us,
Right.
researchers, developers, policymakers, the public. We need to be part of the conversation.
It's not just something that experts can figure out in a lab somewhere.
Exactly. It affects us all.
All right, so before we jump into the next section, just to recap some of the key themes, because it's been a lot.
Yeah. We've talked about the incredible pace of AI development, the massive investments that are pouring into the field, and this competition between different approaches.
Yeah.
We've got the corporate world, we've got the open source community.
Your open source community is really interesting.
Yeah, it's very vibrant.
Yeah.
Lots of energy there. We've also talked about, these incredible capabilities of these models.
Yeah, R1.
R1, R10.
Hey,
Amazing, but also potentially dangerous.
yeah.
And we've touched on the ethical concerns, the need for responsible development and governance.
It's a lot. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, we are. But that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a constantly evolving field.
Right.
New discoveries, new challenges are emerging all the time.
All right, so we've seen the big picture, right? The big investments, these big philosophical questions. But I kind of want to zoom in now. Like, what are the actual nuts and bolts driving this whole AI revolution?
Well, one area that's seeing a ton of innovation is reinforcement learning, or, RL, as they call it.
RL.
Remember how we were talking about R1 and DeepSeek's new approach?
Yeah, they seem to have found a way to make it think more, I don't know,
Yeah.
systematically.
Systematically, yeah. And that's really sparking a whole wave of new research and development in reinforcement learning. And in particular, there's this technique called GRPO, Generalized Reinforcement Learning from Preference Optimization.
Okay, yeah, GRPO. I remember that. I saw that term floating around in some of the papers.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, it kind of went over my head.
Yeah, it's a pretty dense concept. But think of it this way. Imagine you're training a dog.
Okay.
Right? And instead of giving very specific commands, you just give, general feedback. Good job. No, try again.
Right.
GRPO allows AI models to learn from that kind of general feedback.
Interesting.
So it's way more efficient. You don't need as much data.
So it's kind of like it's learning more intuitively.
Yeah, more like a human would.
Right, right.
And this is a big deal because it makes reinforcement learning more accessible. You don't need these massive data sets. You don't need these supercomputers to train really effective models.
Okay, that makes sense. And that actually ties in with something else I saw buzzing around a lot, which is this whole idea of model quantization.
Model quantization, yeah.
What is that?
So that's basically a technique for compressing AI models,
Okay.
making them smaller, faster,
Without losing performance.
without sacrificing too much performance. Yeah.
So it's kind of like taking a giant high-res image,
Yeah,
compressing it down
exactly.
to a smaller file size.
Exactly. And it still looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. And this is important because it allows you to run these powerful models on, less powerful hardware.
Right.
It makes them accessible to way more people.
So it's almost like democratizing AI.
Yeah, it's democratizing AI at a really fundamental level.
So you're saying we could be on the verge of a world where cutting edge AI is not just for big tech companies.
Exactly.
It's like anybody could potentially.
Yeah. And the open source community is really pushing this forward. They're not just developing the models and the techniques, but they're also creating the data sets, the tools, making them publicly available.
Yeah, it really struck me looking at all these different open source communities. There's a real sense of purpose there. This idea that AI should be a force for good in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so exciting about it. It's not just about the technology itself, but it's about using that technology to actually solve problems, to benefit humanity.
Yeah, the good reminder that the future of AI isn't predetermined. It's being shaped right now.
Right.
By the choices that we make, the questions we ask, the actions that we take.
Exactly. And so that brings us back to you, the listener. What role do you want to play in all this? Are you just going to be an observer? Or are you going to be an active participant? Are you going to use your voice? Advocate for responsible development? Explore these tools, these technologies, and see how you can make a difference in your own little corner of the world.
I think those are some great questions for everybody to think about.
Yeah.
Because it's clear that AI is going to have a massive impact on our lives.
Yeah.
And the choices that we make today are really going to determine what that future looks like.
Absolutely. So stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged.
The future is in our hands.
It is.
And that is a wrap on another deep dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of AI with us. It's a fascinating one. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.